Hey, this is Sandy.
And Randy.
And we're here on AT Corner.
Being an athletic trainer comes with ups and downs, and we're here to showcase it all.
Join us as we share our world in sports medicine.
Alright, this is it, AT Corner.
Episode 1.
We're getting this thing started. So in case you guys don't know, I'm Randy.
And I'm Sandy.
And we're both certified athletic trainers.
And we're married.
Yes, we are. So a little background about the show is I've had the idea of starting a podcast for a long time now. How long has it been?
Probably about 2 years, I would say.
Yeah. So my wife, the doer that she is, decided to buy me a microphone this past Christmas.
Well, I said, Randy, are you serious about starting a podcast? Because you can't joke with me. I'm either all in or not at all.
And originally, the role that she was going to have on the show was she was going to do a lot of the production and, making it sound good. So I tried to convince her to come behind the microphone.
That wasn't going to happen.
But finally, what happened, babe?
Well, I'm here.
Exactly. So how's the show going to work, babe?
So, of course, the show started out one-dimensional. It was just going to be purely educational. Randy does a ton of reading, more than probably anyone else that I know, of research articles, and he was going to read them, digest them, and we were going to bring you clinical education based on articles. 1 dimension became 2 dimensions, 2 dimensions became 3 dimensions.
So now what she's saying is we're 3D.
We're 3D. So first things first, we're going to tell stories from real athletic trainers. Then we're going to interview people. And third, we're going to provide clinical education.
We're trying to bundle everything into evidence and experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially the goal of this show, is we're trying to provide a platform that explains all the different parts of practicing as an athletic trainer. We want this to be fun and relatable to athletic trainers everywhere, but also to other health professions like physical therapists or nursing, something that, maybe they don't know exactly what an athletic trainer does or what they go through on a day-to-day basis, or, what do we have to know?
Mm-hmm. And don't be worried. If you're not a healthcare professional, we're totally excited for you to be here too. Our athletes, our friends, anyone who's looking to hear more about the athletic training profession, this is the spot for you.
So to start our maiden voyage into the podcast world, we're going to do some story time.
So before this podcast, I hopped onto 2 athletic training forums and just asked the simple question: what was the funniest moment in your career?
And being an athletic trainer and working with athletes or active patients, you get a lot of funny stories.
Well, you have to have humor to be in this profession.
Yes, exactly.
So we were very fortunate to have over 20 pages of funny story submissions. I typed them all out. I have all of them ready for future episodes.
She's serious. It literally is 20 pages.
So, with one of our very first stories, I thought it would be perfect to start with the first athletic trainer I ever knew, Pam.
And this story is going to be unique because we were lucky enough to get her on the show so she can tell it herself.
We'll listen to that right now.
So, it's one of those situations. I've worked football for a long time, right? And as a female athletic trainer, working in a male sport, you, first of all, can never be surprised at what you have to deal with,
mm-hmm.
because those student athletes, you're with them so much. You do develop a very comfortable relationship. The football athletic trainer is almost always like a fly on the wall. The athletic training room becomes a very comfortable area where student athletes, football players talk like they're talking in the locker room, despite the presence of athletic trainer, who in this case was a female athletic trainer.
Mm-hmm.
But, you go back to the scenario where, I'm a healthcare provider and I will maintain my professionalism. This particular situation was during a football game, and, I'm on the sidelines and I'm standing next to our team physician, and I have a great rapport with our team physician, and I could do 2 things at once. I could watch the game and have a lively conversation with our team physician. And at the end of the play, one of our players, a defensive back, he comes running off the field towards me, and he's looking me right in the eye, and he's holding his groin, and he's yelling at me, Pam, I can't find my left nut. Pam, I can't find my left nut. And I'm thinking, gosh, I'm glad it's a football game. And I'm glad my team doctor, who is a male, is standing right here. And so I just turned and I looked at the team doctor, and I'm like, since you're here, do you want to handle that for me? And he kind of rolled his eyes, and he's like, yeah, I'll handle it. And so he was able to kind of walk the student athlete through the process of, repositioning his testicle into the appropriate anatomical place. He was able to reposition his testicle. Everything was good. He returned to the game. But, the follow-up is really important too. Mm-hmm. So after the game, I had to have him go and do a self-inspection and let me know if there was any swelling, if there was any discoloration, if things looked normal down there, so that if there were any complications, we could get him more specialized medical attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, it's the middle of the game, adrenaline and all of that stuff. It's really easy to overlook what potentially could be something very serious.
It's so important, like you said, that you had such a good rapport with your athletes and that he felt comfortable coming to you.
Yeah, well, and I think that just goes back to that, you as the athletic trainer, like that's who they go to. You're the go-to person. It didn't matter that the doctor was standing right next to me. I'm the familiar one. I'm the one that they're comfortable with. So when there's a problem, and it's a big, scary problem, thankfully, he was comfortable enough to come to me and say, look, this is a big, scary problem I have. Can you help me fix it? But it is kind of a funny story.
I'm so glad Pam was willing to come on and share her story.
Yeah, that was a really good story. I know when we first heard it, we talked about how being an athletic trainer and you gain that rapport with your student athletes. I remember as an athletic training student myself, like one of the very first places that I, volunteered with to get my hours to get into my athletic training program. I was working an event with him and we were talking, and he said at that moment when an athlete's hurt, like that's a very traumatic experience for them and it can be very scary. And in moments like that, they revert back to being like kids. And, when you're scared and when you're hurt, what do kids always look towards? Their teddy bear. And he really summed it up perfectly. At that moment, we're their teddy bear. We're the thing that's going to give them comfort and give them some guidance on what's going on. So the big, bad, scary thing may not actually be a scary thing anymore.
Mm-hmm. And that shows not only in Pam's story where her athlete came to her and not the physician who was there for every game, but
they went directly to her, and I mean, that speaks volumes about one, what she's done at her job and what she's done with those athletes, but what athletic trainers do everywhere. I definitely know everyone else can relate to something like that.
We are so unique in the fact that we get to see our patients every day.
Exactly. And that was one of the first things that drew me to this profession was it's really true. We're in a unique position where we see our athletes every day. And, sometimes that's bad and sometimes it's good. But, we really get to know everyone and, we see them from the time they get hurt, taking them through treatments or rehab. And even if we're not the one predominantly doing the rehab, even if they're going to someone, being referred out, we're still there in that process to see them. And then we get to see them return to play. And it's one of the most rewarding things about the job.
You ready to move on to the next one?
I am.
Okay, so this one is a submission from Gary. He said, when I worked in the IHL, which is the International Hockey League, when players were injured, a referee or player comes to the bench to skate you out. You jump over boards and grab their elbow. As they get close to the injured player, they're supposed to tell you as they slow down so you can get your bearings on the ice. Well, one time, a player didn't say anything. He just moved his elbow as he skated away from the injured player. Well, I lost control on the ice and went flat on my butt in front of 14,000 people at the Omni in Atlanta. Only good thing was, I received a standing ovation. Needless to say, injured player wasn't injured anymore, except for his abs for laughing so hard.
That's pretty bad.
I could not imagine. I don't think I've ever fallen when I was running out.
No, I've never done anything that bad.
But I've also never been on the ice.
Oh man, that's hard. I have to say, for all the hockey athletic trainers out there, that hats off to you, because when I was a student, we did like some spine boarding with the local hockey team, just to learn about how you do it on the ice, and that was terrible. So I don't know how you guys do it. Hats off to you.
I do remember one time I was running out onto the football field, and I had my hand sanitizer clipped on the side of my kit, and I was running out, and I don't know what it got caught on. I don't know if my hand hit it or something, but the hand sanitizer hangs down, and I flipped it open on accident. So as I'm running out, my hand sanitizer is pouring down my leg, down my back, all over my fanny pack, and of course, that's not your focus at the moment. Your focus is the kid who's screaming, right? So I went over, and I'm dealing with the kid, and I finally, once everything was
taken care of.
Once everything was taken care of, I was able to kind of figure out what happened with my fanny pack, and I turned around and the hand sanitizer was all over everywhere. So then I unfortunately had a bag of pretzels in my kit, which were non-edible after that incident. So,
which, by the way, I mean, all athletic trainers know your kit's dual purpose. It's for work, but it also carries your snacks on those long days. So this next story is from Bekkah. So I am 5'2". When I was in undergrad, the certified, and for those who don't know, athletic training students like to call their preceptor, the one who supervises them in their clinical rotations, which is a certified athletic trainer, we refer to them as certified. So if you ever hear that on the show, that's what we're talking about. I was in undergrad. The certified asked me to clean the low boy whirlpool. When I went to clean the bottom of it, I had bent over fully and gone on my tippy toes. I didn't realize my feet were in water, and well, I slipped. So all you see sticking out of the whirlpool were these two legs flapping around until I got my footing again. Safe to say, took a while to live that down.
This has never happened to me, but I can definitely relate to the fact that I am only 5'1".
That's true, and that can make cleaning tough.
Yeah. One time, actually, I remember that this was before I was even a student. I think I was just doing observation hours, so I was just filling water, and I had the hose. It was I think it was one of the first days, because I don't think I really knew how to use the hose. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, yes, I know that, but I was filling the water bottles, and one of the football players was sitting in the whirlpool. Does everyone know what a whirlpool is?
In case you don't know, basically it's a giant tub that holds water, and then you add a turbine to it to basically add a current to the water and makes it literally like a whirlpool.
It's a fancy ice bath. So anyway, I was making water, and I had the hose, and I was filling them all up, and I turned the faucet to turn it off. Well, I didn't realize that I was actually turning the opposite way, and I turned it up, and I lost control of the hose, and all of a sudden the hose goes straight up and gets this football player all wet.
And you see, again, going back to that's how you build rapport right there. Mm-hmm. That's a story they probably talked about, that you guys probably talked about.
Well, that's how I met him. I did not know him before.
Exactly. And also, that is what college is for. Those are the tools that you learn about how to turn on and off a hose.
The basics of athletic training, right? So another submission from Angela. She wrote in, I was working at track meet, and one of the boys said, "This is for you, Angela. You're my spirit animal," before his race. He proceeded to lose his shoe within 30 meters of the start and finish his entire race with one shoe.
I mean, that is sweet, first of all, that they were willing to run that race for the athletic trainer. That doesn't happen very often. But, I mean, that does speak to the character of some of the athletes that we have to deal with. By the way, losing a shoe during a race. So I've worked track and field and cross country for a long time. I mean,
he hasn't just worked track and field for a long time. This man lives track and field.
Yes, I fell in love with the culture of these kids, even though I've never ran it. All the athletes always ask me, "Did you run cross and track?" And I'm like, no.
You got to tell your story about the steeplechase, though.
So it was during my grad assistantship. And it was one of my last, it was getting close to the end of my contract, and it was our last home meet. So luckily I split time with another athletic trainer, so they were able to cover some of the meet for me while I signed up for the steeplechase. Now, if you don't, now for people who aren't track savvy or just really don't know, the steeplechase is a 3,000 meter race that includes 5 barriers. They're basically like giant hurdles.
How many laps is 3,000 meters?
It's going to depend on the track. If the water jump, more on that later. If the water jumps towards the outside of the track, it's 6 laps, I think. And then if it's on the inside, it's like 7 laps.
Okay. So over a mile.
Yeah. And again, over one of the jumps, there's a pool of water. So I have no training skill at all. And the original idea of this was, I'll use this for a class, because one of my classes we had to design a program and take it through. I was like, I'll just use this as an excuse and I can train and stuff like that. So training was bare minimum. We didn't do very well at that. So we were like, okay, we're just going to see what we get. So I started the race, right? And I'm pretty sure that's the most anyone's cared about the steeplechase. It basically stopped the meet. Everyone was watching.
Well, the officials were very confused.
Yeah, they're very confused.
They asked Randy if he even knew what he was doing.
And I have an idea. I've watched it enough. I got this. So race starts, right? And we start running. I mean, mind you, there's only 3 other people or 4 other people in this race. There's not many people.
I think people even made signs for you, didn't they?
Oh, yes. And after the first barrier, my calves immediately started hurting. And I'm like, this sucks. I don't know how I'm going to do this. So whatever, we just keep going. So I'm powering through, and we get to the first water jump. And it's funny, because one of my athletes, who is a steepler, gave me the advice, hey, when you jump in the water, don't straighten your knees. I know that. I'm like, oh yeah, duh, it makes sense. What do I do when I land in the water? I landed straight kneed. Oh, it hurt. Everything hurt. It went up all the way up to my back. It was just a mess. That's not even 1 lap. So I finally complete the lap, and I'm going to go again. Now, finally, in my mind, I've gotten to this point where I don't think I'm going to make it. But I'm going to at least try and get a second water jump. So I'm still going. And the barrier before the water jump, I had to climb over it. And at that moment, I'm like, I'm never going to make this water jump. And I just stepped off the track and said, we're done. So I'm pretty sure I made it 600 meters. I was on the heat sheet, by the way, so that was pretty cool. At the end, it did say DNF for did not finish, but it's okay. I was there. It hurt.
Better than DNR.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. In most situations, yeah.
Okay, I'm super, super, super excited about this next story because it was sent in by one of my really good friends and colleagues, Nicolette. I actually haven't let Randy listen to this one yet.
No, Bob. These are virgin ears to this story right now.
So, let's pull it up.
So, sometimes I would take the newly signed athletes to their physical appointments, just because they didn't have a car yet, or they were just flying in that day, and they had to be at practice or the stadium later that week. So, one of the athletic trainers would take them to their physicals, and then we would get, the medical documentation prior to them practicing, obviously. So, during one of the stressful weeks, we had a new signing from Africa who was coming in, which we overheard. And we had to take him to his physical exam, and of course, it would be me, and it was scheduled for my day off, so that was always fun. But I was given very little information, given basically his name and his phone number, and they're like, okay, they stay at, this certain hotel, so I obviously knew that, and they're like, oh, just pick him up, his appointment's at 9, go ahead. And then one of the athletic trainers is like, oh, I actually, don't think he's too good at English, so, be prepared for that. And I was like, okay. So, all right, saw him at the hotel and waved him down and introduced myself. He got in the car. I asked him to fill out this medical paperwork, and when I handed it to him, he looked really confused. So I was like, oh, okay, and handed him the Spanish version of the medical paperwork. And then I tried to talk to him Spanish, which again was soon evident that he did not speak that as well. So he used his phone to tell me on Google Translate, he doesn't speak Spanish, he doesn't speak English, he speaks Swahili. And I was like, Okay. So as I arrived at the doctor's office, I literally translated every single question from the medical documentation, the PPEs, to Swahili. And of course, English to Swahili is not always a clear translation. So I asked him, one of the medical questions was, do you have any heart conditions, like a heart murmur, or like tachycardia? And then he translated back, I want a soft chicken. And I was trying to hold in my laughter. And I was like, okay, be professional, relax. And then just screenshotted it for another time. But we went about our days. Obviously, it was very difficult because I also had to translate what the doctor was asking. And he also doesn't know Swahili, as most people in America and California do not know. But later that day, they like dropped him off at the hotel. So I go home and I tell my sister, like, hey, like, you wanna know something funny that happened today? And I told her this story about how he basically answered the question, do you have heart murmurs, with I want a soft chicken. And she was in tears laughing so hard. And I'm glad that, someone found it amusing. But, she now has that picture, the screenshotted version, framed in her house because she just wants to laugh, and like that always makes her laugh. So I'm glad someone found it amusing, and I guess my advice would just be like speaking two languages isn't enough. Consider taking up like Swahili, especially if you're going into MLS.
That's pretty funny.
Do you see why I saved that one now?
That was pretty good. I mean, that is great advice. Definitely just learn all the languages, just in case. I do understand that, especially for someone like that coming to it, shoot, that person's coming from a different country, different language. I mean, that could be very intimidating. I've been lucky not to have any language barriers so far, but there was one time as a student, I was filling out an injury report for a student athlete. And, we've all seen the standard injury reports, and usually the basic question is, what year are you? I mean, what year are you at school? Like, it could be a simple question. And I asked this athlete, I said, okay, well, what year are you? And he looked at me and he was like, I don't know. Okay, maybe that was kind of a weird question. Like what year, like, how long have you been at this school? I don't know.
Did he not speak English?
No, he spoke English. He legit didn't know. But some of it could be, okay, maybe like he's a shy guy, so having to come in and like have someone asking him all these questions to do an injury report, which, mind you, obviously he's injured, so he might already be in a bad place.
Yeah, that's a scary process.
That could be very scary, so maybe he just didn't know how to answer that question.
Poor kid. I did have someone who spoke only French who I treated at a dance jam.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think the way that I communicated with him, I can't remember if we used Google Translate, but I know... Oh, you know what? No. He had someone who spoke French and English. One of his teammates. So I brought him over and I just used him as a translator.
Nice. That's awesome. I think that could end up being a nice story topic of hearing from other athletic trainers of how you've dealt with athletes that may not speak your language. Maybe that's something we can do down the line if we have enough stories.
Yeah, I would be in trouble even if someone started speaking Spanish. Although I would say that I do understand it pretty well. But man, I've taken 4 years of Spanish and it's gone right in 1 year and out through the other.
Well, that's okay. I took 3 years of French in high school and I don't remember any of it. Please do not speak French to me. I will not remember, nor will I know what you're talking about. I know she was talking about a picture in her story, correct?
Yeah, so she also sent the picture in.
So this is going to be Sandra's favorite part. As we've been prepping for this episode, she's been excited to tell everyone about this.
So Nicolette sent in the picture of her sister's framed Google Translate picture. And so we have a special thing for you guys. Since we want to create this athletic training community, we are taking that picture and we're going to put it in our Facebook group that we created.
Yes, so this is the whole interaction part. We want to interact with everyone. We want you guys to be a part of the show and, react to what we talk about on the show. And this could be a great avenue to do that.
Podcasts are so great, but you can't comment on them. But you can in a Facebook group. To join the Facebook group, there's only one membership question. It's how you heard about us, just so we can kind of figure out where our community is coming from. And then you should automatically be approved to join the group. If you're not, then message me and we can figure that out. So each episode I will be posting, or Randy will be posting,
I'm not very good at social media, so if you're looking at a post and you're like, what happened here? I probably posted that one.
So we're going to create episode threads for each episode in our Facebook group, along with some other fun things along the way. But for this one, we'll post the episode thread, and then I'll post the picture in the comments for you all to see. You know what? To entice you to join our Facebook group, not only are we going to post that picture that Nicolette sent in, but I'm going to see if we can find that video of Randy running the steeplechase.
I'm sure we can dig that up.
Especially the part where he jumps in the water and hyperextends his knees.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
So, those are the stories we have for today, but we want to give a huge, huge thank you for everyone who submitted stories, and please continue to submit stories. If you didn't hear your story today, we have something really special in store, and so I actually, remember how I said that I typed them all out and there are 20 pages of stories? I actually categorized all of them, and what we are planning on doing is making specific episodes. So we got a lot of concussion stories. Probably one of the next few episodes is going to be stories specifically about concussions, or like crazy mechanisms of injury, emergencies, like different aspects of things that we do in the athletic training profession and things that we see. So continue to submit your stories.
Yeah, and then we'll, like you said, we'll try and create some themes and, see what we get. Like we said, we want to showcase everything. We want to show what the job's about.
And we're going to pair that with education. So evidence and experience. Another big thank you we want to give out is to Edwin on the Active Variable podcast.
He has a great show, by the way. I've enjoyed a few of those episodes.
Yeah, so he is another certified athletic trainer. If you go back in his archives, you'll find that I was one of his interviewees.
See, she was getting it started.
So, hey, can you believe that I was on a podcast before you were?
I know, and you crushed it.
So anyway, he really helped us with our sound and getting us set up and giving us some pointers. So go check out his podcast.
The Active Variable podcast, right?
The Active Variable. All right. Well, join the Facebook group. Keep sending your stories.
Where do they send the stories to?
We have an email. It's kind of nerdy. atcorenerds@gmail.com.
So what made it nerdy? I don't get it.
So it's going to be in the show notes, along with a bunch of our other links, so you can find us on social media and connect with our community. And then on Thursday, we're going to do a little bit of a different kind of episode. Like I said, we're three-dimensional. So this episode's fun stories. Next episode's going to be education.
Yes, we're going to be looking at Achilles tendinopathy. So what we'll do is we'll try and dive in some of the anatomy, what are some risk factors, what's happening with an injury like that, and how do we treat it?
And you know what? We have a story to start that off too.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to bore you guys. Hopefully this is fun.
Yeah, back and forth. So I think that's it for today, right?
Yeah, I think that was pretty solid.
Thanks for tuning in and helping us showcase athletic training.
Beyond the tape. Bye.